Let me level with you right now. What we're stepping into over these next couple of weeks is not just another routine forecast. No, this is one of those times of year where I stop mid-scroll through the models. I sit back and I realize the atmosphere is about to flip the script on us. We've been hanging on to those last breaths of summer warmth. Down south, folks are still wiping sweat off their brows with temps pushing into the 80s and 90s. Across the heartland, people are still mowing lawns in the late season heat. But that comfort zone, that extended summer feeling, it's about to get ripped away, and fast, because right on the horizon, I'm seeing it. One of the first true Arctic blasts of the season. A powerhouse shot of cold air that's been locked up far to the north. Finally breaking free and charging straight into the US. And I don't throw the word Arctic around lightly. This isn't a grab a hoodie, sip a pumpkin spice kind of cold. This is the kind of cold that gets inside your bones. That has the power to whip up heavy snow. To drive winds that cut right through you. Some regions could be staring down 2, maybe even 3 feet of snow. I want to walk you through exactly where this is setting up, what's fueling it, and how it could completely flip the rhythm of this season. Right now, all that brutally cold air is bottled up way to the north. But the key player here, the Arctic oscillation, is swinging negative. And whenever that happens, it's like somebody kicks open a giant gate at the top of the world. The question isn't if the cold will escape, but when. And what I'm seeing on the charts, around October 10th, that gate is wide open. And when it opens, the cold doesn't just slip quietly into the US. No, it storms in. It digs deep. It makes itself at home. And if the trends I'm watching hold true, this won't be a 24-hour cold snap. We're talking about a chill that could stretch for a week, maybe 10 days, maybe even longer, possibly carrying us all the way toward October 20th. And here's where it gets really interesting. We're already feeling the first brushstrokes of this transition. East Coast folks, you'll notice those below-average temps sneaking in this week. Out west, the early taste of that sharp chill is showing up. But if you're in the central US or down along the Gulf Coast, you're still baking in the 80s, maybe even the 90s. And that contrast, warm middle, cold edges, that's the tension that builds the stage for explosive weather. Because eventually, that cold air will shove its way past the Rockies. And when it does, everything changes. That's when the snow machine cranks up. And let me tell you something. When I see the big global models like the European and the GFS start to agree, that's when I really start paying attention. And right now, they're both singing the same tune. They're pointing to a setup where the Rockies could just get absolutely buried. 1 to 2 feet of snow isn't just a possibility. It's already being hinted at. And there are even signals that certain spots could blow past that mark, heading into totals that would make midwinter blush. And that's just the Rockies. If this Arctic blast digs deeper, and the data suggests it wants to, it's going to push into the upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes, and maybe even charge toward the Northeast. I want you to picture this for a second. It's mid-October. You're thinking crisp fall air, maybe a golden afternoon walk, a cup of cider in hand. And then overnight, you step outside, and suddenly it feels like December. Temperatures in the 20s and 30s. Wind chills that slice it down into the teens. Heavy snowflakes swirling in the air while the trees are still holding on to their leaves. That's the kind of shock this blast could deliver. And trust me, this isn't me being dramatic. This is me reading what the atmosphere itself is writing. The Arctic oscillation has turned negative. The gates are open. The models are flashing snowfall totals that aren't light dustings. These are disruptive, plow-demanding, power line-bending snows. And once we get that first system, history tells me the door doesn't just shut. The jet stream locks into a rhythm. And once that happens, the cold keeps coming. It's cold shots, then storms, then maybe a warm-up, only to reset all over again. That's how fall hands the keys over to winter. And beyond the science, let's talk about what it's actually going to feel like. Because numbers on a model are one thing. What you feel in your bones is another. Out west, mornings dropping into the 20s and 30s. Afternoons that struggle to even touch the 50s. The East Coast? By late next week, you'll be rummaging through closets for coats you thought you could ignore until Thanksgiving. The central US? You're going to cling to that warmth a little longer. But believe me, it's a mirage. By the time next weekend rolls around, that heat breaks and you'll be staring down the same cold front everyone else is. Let's back up for a second. Over the last few days, I've been keeping a very close eye on that disturbance brewing out in the Eastern Pacific. I told you yesterday it had potential, and tonight the signals are even stronger. The National Weather Service has updated its outlooks, and the moment I pulled up those maps and saw all that color lighting up, I knew right away we weren't in routine forecast territory anymore. Over Florida, that highlighted zone I mentioned yesterday is still there. Now, development chances are technically low, but don't let that fool you. That area is primed to unload heavy thunderstorms, torrential rain, and enough gusty wind to cause some real headaches. That's just the starter course. The main dish comes later, because the real drama, the real heavyweight clash, is mid-October. That's when the pieces all come together. We've got tropical waves rolling in from the Atlantic. We've got cold fronts diving south out of Canada. We've got warm air fighting to hold its ground across the Gulf and Southeast, and underneath all of it, the Caribbean waters are running outrageously hot. I'm not exaggerating when I say record-breaking sea surface temps. We're talking bathwater conditions, with deep ocean heat just sitting there, untouched, waiting. That's like leaving gasoline out in the sun. All it needs is a spark. And when one of these tropical waves drops into that environment, it's going to blow up fast. That's not hype, that's just how the physics work. And here's the kicker. The models don't even agree. Google's AI forecast is pulling one direction, the Euromodel another, the GFS doing its own wild thing off in left field. And when the models are split like this, I don't just pick one and run with it. No, I watch. I stay patient. Because nature doesn't care what the computers say. The final decision comes from the atmosphere itself. And right now, the ingredients are all lining up in a way that screams volatility. Caribbean, Gulf, East Coast. If you're in those regions, you need to be paying attention. Now, let's talk about Priscilla. She hasn't even been named yet, but the writing's on the wall. All signs point to her spinning up right off the Pacific coastline. And here's where it gets tricky. Her track will decide the story. If she hugs the shoreline, then we're looking at direct flooding rains, damaging winds, and potential mudslides in the southwest. If she lingers just offshore, though, that's a whole different beast. That sets up a conveyor belt of moisture, wave after wave feeding into the US, like a fire hose aimed right at us. Either way, she's going to leave a mark. And I'll be tracking every wobble, every stall, every shift, and I'm not done. Because by next week, 7 to 8 days out, we've got another tropical wave on the move. This one's heading straight for the Lesser Antilles. Most models try to bend it north, keep it away from the islands. But I've seen this movie too many times before. These systems love to drift west longer than expected before turning north. That's why, if you're in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Jamaica, even up into the Bahamas, you cannot relax on this one. The timing is perfect. The environment is perfect. The water is hot enough to supercharge it. This is the kind of storm track that keeps me awake at night. And while the tropics rage, the mainland US isn't exactly catching a break. The atmosphere here is gearing up for its own slugfest. First, we warm up. Feels nice for a moment. But then, bang! Sharp cold air plunges south by the 12th and beyond. And this isn't just a cool breeze. This is the kind of cold that bulldozes its way into the Rockies, then spills out across the plains and Midwest. That means snow. And I don't mean a dusting. I'm talking storm after storm stacking up, turning the mountains white, shutting down passes, shifting the whole seasonal feel. By the third system, it won't just look like fall anymore. It'll look like winter has crashed the party early. And trust me, Arctic blasts like this never stay polite. They spread. They expand. They bring their icy grip eastward. And here's where it gets even more serious. When you throw record-breaking warmth against plunging cold, you don't get calm weather. You get severe weather outbreaks. That's thunderstorms ripping across the plains. That's damaging winds screaming through the Dakotas and Minnesota. That's hail lighting up the radar like fireworks. That's flash flooding from the Gulf all the way to Florida. This clash zone is going to be mean. And it's going to reload again and again, round after round, right through the heart of October. So if you're just finding this channel right now, your timing could not be better. Because this isn't a one-and-done event. This next stretch of weather is going to be chaotic. It's going to be powerful. And it's going to unfold like a series of heavyweight rounds.